Thank you for trying TechSmith's Camtasia Relay.
Okay, so welcome to the session today. My name is Rick Mertz-Schaefer, and this is Tobias Nouns. We're talking about the BlueLine Gradebook. This session is going to be largely conceptual and me showing you things versus hands-on. Now, you're welcome to go ahead and log into BlueLine and go into your own gradebook and follow along some of the things, but I'll be doing specific examples to an example I've done, which is probably different than your gradebook. So, like I said, it'll be mainly conceptual in that aspect, but we'll certainly have time at the end for specific questions you may have about your own gradebook. So, to start out with,
I'm going to turn off the light real quick so everybody can fall asleep.
I'm just going to talk a little bit about some of the concepts of the gradebook that I think are somewhat important to understand why it works the way it does. Okay, I think it's a really good tool, but there's some peculiarities that really it helps to understand. So first, just a couple of terminologies used within the BlueLine Gradebook. First of all, assignments. Anything that you're going to grade and put into your gradebook is referred to as an assignment in the gradebook. So if you give an exam and you're going to name it Exam 1, it goes in as an assignment even though it's an exam. Okay, so assignments are anything that are gradable. Categories are groups of assignments. Okay, and every assignment has to be in at least one, well, not at least one, has to be in one category. So you have to have at least one category that your assignments go into. Categories can be used for organizational grouping, but they can also be used for weighting your gradebook if you want to. And we'll get to more of that here in just a minute. Now, I think the easiest way to show this is just bring up an example grading scheme. So let's pretend I'm teaching a course and I've got a pretty simple system of grading. I've got 3 exams, a couple quizzes, and a research paper. That comprises the student's grade for the semester. And to break it down even further, I'm going to have 3 categories. A category for my exams, one for quizzes, one for my research paper. And then within each of those categories then, I will have assignments. My 3 exams are assignments, my 2 quizzes, and my research paper, I'm actually going to grade 3 different aspects for that part of the grade. So I'm going to have 1 assignment for the topic proposal, 1 for the rough draft, and 1 for the final submission. So each of those is an assignment because I'm going to grade each of those individual items. Does that make sense so far where I'm going with this? And as such, again, sample grades. Now, for this example, I'm going to make each of my assignments worth 100 points. It's just simpler for doing the math in here and showing this. Okay, next concept. The gradebook works in 2 modes, and they refer to those as points mode or percentage mode. I think that's kind of confusing. People think that, and they think, oh, so do I enter for an individual grade a point one way versus percents on the other way? And that's not what it's talking about. It's not talking about points versus percentage on individual assignments. It's talking about the overall grade and how it's calculated. Simply put, in points mode, the overall grade for a student is calculated by taking the number of points they earn divided by the points possible in the course. Okay? It's that simple. Points earned divided by points possible. Percentage mode lets you weight categories. Okay? That's the about the only difference between those 2 modes. So let's look at an example. Let's say we're running our gradebook in points mode. We've got our same setup here of assignments and categories. This is one student's particular grade, scored 75, 95, etc. on the exams, the quizzes, and the research paper. So to figure out the overall grade, we take the sum of all the assignments divided by the points possible, which would be 688 divided by 800. This student has an 85% on this type of grading scheme. If we take the exact same class here, but we do it in percentage mode, the main difference is we weight the categories. Okay, same grades, same assignments. However, in the gradebook, we're going to weight the categories. We're going to say exams are 50% of the overall grade, quizzes are 30%, the research paper is 20%. Now, in order to calculate the grade, first the gradebook will calculate an average for each category. Then it will take the average. So for instance, for exams, the average of an 80 times the weighting, which would be 50% or 0.5, has that total, does it for all three categories. You add that up, and then in this case, the student scores an 83.5. You follow that about the difference there? So really, the points versus percentage mode only affects the overall grade and how that's calculated.
I don't remember what your overall grade was.
85.
Oh.
This time was lowered because the exams were weighted at 50% of the whole grade, and they scored lower in the exams than everything else. So it brought the grade down. They did worse on what was more important in this case. Questions on those terminology so far? Yeah.
Just a quick question. Like, if you were weighting your exams differently from each other, you could still just add up what they are together and have it be one category, or would you need to set up a category for each exam if you wanted it to weight into the grades? So, like, so one exam was 20%, the other ones was 15%. So you just say exams with 35, it's going to turn out the same, or would you have to have two categories?
Within the category, let's go back to my example here. My 3 exams are all worth 100 points.
Yeah.
So they were all weighted equally within that 50%. If I was going to weight exam 1 twice as high as exam 2, one way to do that would be to make exam 1 worth 200 points and exam 2 worth 100 points.
Okay.
So what?
But then I would have to alter, like if I'm giving
No.
grades back in percentages based on a 100-point scale.
When you enter grades, you can enter them as percentages or as points. So you say when you do your exams, let's say they're out of 50 points, do you turn into your students they got 40 out of 50, or would you write that as 96%?
I give it a percentage.
What you could do is in the grade book, and we'll do this in a minute, create exam 1 worth 200 points, exam 2 versus 100, and when you enter the grade, you can enter a percentage in there. So you enter the 96, and it scales it up to the 190, whatever the case may be.
Oh, okay.
Does that make sense? So you can use the points to scale within
Okay,
categories.
So when I'm setting the settings, I can say 200 points, but I still just enter the same percentage.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. That makes sense.
Some people will choose to actually, in that situation, to make a separate category for each exam. And you can do that, but it really starts to make the gradebook look kind of clunky. Because then you're weighting exam 1 as 10%, exam 2 as 15%, and you get a lot of categories.
Or you just do a straight percentage-based or points-based gradebook, and you just know that, you know, if you want an exam to be worth twice as much, you just do it straight points-based. You can still enter a percentage when you score it, and they'll see that, but you can just do a straight points-based gradebook if you want to do that. Does that make sense?
Okay. What I'm going to do now, how do I get back to, is I'm going to, in BlueLine, we're going to set up this exact gradebook we just looked at with a sample.
You want me to drive?
Sure, why don't you drive?
Here, I'll let you run the PowerPoint. Now.
Thank you. So the gradebook is how many of you have used the gradebook some already in BlueLine? Yes, but so the other 3 of you haven't used it at all? Okay, that's good to know. To access the gradebook, it's under the Manage tab. And there's a link here for gradebook. Now before we click on it, I just want to mention one thing. The first time you run a gradebook in a course, it takes you through what's called a setup wizard, where it's going to let you decide some of these things we just talked about. Every time after that, you'll never see the wizard again. So if you've already gone into one of your classes and just clicked on the gradebook link wondering, what's this? You may not see the setup wizard we're going to see right now. And that's OK, because everything we do in the wizard, we can do afterwards as well. The other nice thing I'll tell you before we get started is you can copy your gradebook from one semester to the other, as well as from one section to another one. So once you set it up the way you want it, next semester you just copy your settings over. You don't have to do all that setup again, assuming your course has the same grading scheme. OK, so we're going to go ahead and click on this, and it will do the setup wizard, because we started from scratch here. First thing it's going to ask you, points mode or percentage mode. That's why it's important to understand the concepts from the get-go of how are you actually grading. Do you want weighted categories or not? We'll come back to that in a second. This section here, and it's really annoying because they don't actually tell you what this is. These are default categories it's laying out for you. By default, it's saying a homework, quizzes, and exams category. We're going to replace those with whatever we have on the sheet there. It's printed out in front of you, Tobias. So I think we had what?
You want it in the same order?
Yeah, if you would.
All right.
So we have exams, quizzes, and research paper, I think. So we're going to go ahead and define our 3 categories right here. Notice we're not allowed to weight the categories because we're in a points-based gradebook. If we switch this to percentage, it adds a column and lets us actually right now give our weighting for the 3 categories that we want to use. Let's don't do that in this case. Let's actually do, or you're already doing it?
I was just going to
Go ahead. Yeah, we'll do a percentage then.
30 and then if you wanted 20. That's the way we had in the example.
So we're going to go into a percentage-based one. We've weighted our categories. One other feature we're not going to do, but I'll just show you about it. If you have a grading system where you drop the student's lowest quiz or something like that, you can do that within a category. So for our quizzes, if we want to drop the lowest, right here, we can say drop lowest. And then we decide how many of the lowest scores do we drop. You can drop 2, 3, 12 quizzes. We'll just leave it at 1. One word about this. If you're dropping the lowest quiz score, by default, a blank grade is not the lowest score. So if you say to drop the lowest quiz score, you go and enter the first quiz into the grade book. Those are all being dropped because it's the only score in there, and thus it's the lowest. Once you get 2 or 3 quiz grades in there, it's fine. It makes sense. But for a while, the students might think, well, why am I showing a 0 right now? It's just something we like to point out. An alternative way to do it, if you know you're going to give 10 quizzes and you're going to drop 1 score, you can say use highest and say use the highest 9. And then it's additive. As soon as you enter 1 score in there, that's one of the 9 highest. Not until you actually get more than 9 to start dropping anything. Or not dropping, but not counting, actually. But we're not going to do that. We're going to have ours be use all assignments. So we did that. We'll click Next. This page, if you've not put anything in your course, this page will be blank. The idea of this page is to give you a quick way to add any content you've put into lessons to automatically add it to the gradebook. So when Tobias and I, we design online courses as well for instructors. We will usually design all the content in the Lessons tab before the class even starts. The last thing we do then is we run this wizard, and we would have all our exams, all our discussion boards listed here, and we simply check and say this is graded, this is graded, this is graded, this is graded, and it creates those assignments for us. Most face-to-face courses aren't going to be like that. You're going to add things to the gradebook one at a time, I'm guessing. So thus, we're just going to skip this page and click Next.
We're not going to go into it too much, but because you can pull and link gradable items under lessons to your gradebook, you can, under lessons, actually grade items. So if there's a link there, you can be under lessons, your Dropbox, and you just start grading things from there. And if there's a link there, it gets sent to the gradebook. So this is a quick way, if you've already pre-built your stuff, to sort of create that link. Otherwise, you have to go back to lessons and sort of make the links later.
So we'll kind of ignore this page and click Next. This page allows us to put in a letter, a scale for letter grades. It's optional. If you don't want to mess with letter grades at all, you're just showing points and percentage, you can ignore this. But we'll go ahead and do this. One thing I like to point out, most people on their syllabus, I always see they'll have a range. They'll say 80s or an A is from 93 to 100. With this system, you just put in the minimum to get a particular letter. It knows what the maximum is because it looks at the next letter higher. Okay, so you don't put a range in, you just put the minimum. Sometimes people get in a roll here and when they get to F, they put a 50 in for F just because they're going down by 10s. The reason that's a problem is that if a student scores a 40, there's no letter corresponding to something below a 50. So we always point out that you want to, for your F, have your minimum be a 0, so that it's actually going to have a letter grade for everything that you want to. Okay?
Anything that's presented to the students when they view their grades, if you show letter grades, is adhering to the scale that you've put in. This is a simple one that, you know.
We leave off pluses and minuses because I can never remember those breaks because we didn't have those when I went to school. So go ahead and say Next. We finished the wizard. Okay? Every time from here on out, when we click the gradebook link, this is the screen we're going to see. Okay? Now, what did we do? We created the mode, or we set the mode to percentage. If we needed to change that, that's under preferences, but we won't actually go there yet. We created our categories, and if we click over here into Gradebook Management on categories, we will see the 3 categories we created and their percentages as we set them already. If we made a mistake and need to edit one of these, we simply check the box and say Edit Selected, and there's a screen where we can edit and actually even configure more things if we want to. but we're good with this. So we'll say cancel. And we'll go back to the main menu. So the one thing that we're really missing, well, I guess click on grading scale real quick. We also set up the grading scale in the wizard as well. So that's done for us.
And notice that we can edit it. If we change our mind, we can go in and edit what we want.
Yep.
Again, now all the stuff that went through the wizard, you can go back and change your mind.
And if you miss the wizard, you can always come back here and just add it manually as well. So back to the main menu. So the one thing we're really missing so far is our assignments, the things that we're going to grade. So we'll click on assignments over here under Gradebook Management. We see we have none, so we're going to manually start adding them. It's an Add New button. And if you have a small screen, sometimes you get lost because you don't see this. It's towards the bottom of the screen where you edit this information. We'll give it a title, Exam 1. Descriptions are optional. To be honest, the students don't see it or anything. It's more for your own note keeping if you want to notate something on there. Category, it's pulling our categories we already created, so just select the right one. Points possible, and this is where we talked about with the different weighting, you could use this method. So we'll weight this one at 100. Display format, course default. I always recommend leave it on course default. And the reason why is, here are your other options. You can do % with the letter grade, score %, score letter grade, or each of those individually. Let's say right now we create 20 assignments and we set them all to be score %. And then 2 weeks from now we change our mind. We'd rather have score and the letter grade. We'd have to come change it on all 20 assignments. If we leave them all on course default, there's one place in the preferences where we can specify that default, and it affects all of our assignments that way. Okay? So what I usually tell people, leave it on default unless it's a specific assignment that you want to display the grade differently to students. An example, maybe you just want them to see a letter grade on a research paper or something. Then you might change that. Calculation type, usually always you leave that to manual when you're creating things in the gradebook here. What this means is it's for online items. If you're doing an online exam, you would want to have one of these other items selected. But we're going to actually show you a different way to do that, which is better. Typically, anything you create in the gradebook, you would leave that on manual. Extra credit. Sometimes people click that thinking, oh, I'm going to allow extra credit on this exam, so I'll check that box. That's not how it works. What this means is that this whole assignment is extra credit. Okay, so typically you don't want to check that unless you're adding an extra credit assignment to your gradebook. One other thing before we click Save, if you forget any of these things, these little title things pop up contextual help. So click on, for instance, points, Tobias. Sometimes it's useless, but specifies the number of points possible for the assignment. Not a lot of great insight, but it can be useful sometimes if you're not sure about display format, for instance. Try that one, see if it's any better. A little bit more information on what that actually is talking about, telling you how it's going to show up to the student.
Yeah, ways of display both for the instructor and for the student. So there's some useful information.
So we're going to go ahead and save. Our first exam's in there. And now we're going to add new, and we'll add our second exam. We'll go a little quicker this time, just doing the things we really need. We need a title, of course. We need the category. And we need the points. Everything else we're leaving how it is.
Do all?
Yep, go ahead and do exam 3. And then we have 2 quizzes. So we'll say add new, and this time we'll do quiz 1. This time we have to switch our categories, defaulting to the first one on the list. So we want to switch that. And again, we'll do 100-point quizzes just because that was what I did in the sample.
We want to make them as equally weighted as our exam.
Didn't we had 2 quizzes, right, in the sample? Okay. Now, if you've already specified in your syllabus your whole grading scheme, I like the idea of setting up the gradebook before the semester starts while you're thinking about this and it's fresh in your mind. And then during the semester, all you really have to do is come back and enter grades. You don't have to remember, oh, how do I create a category? How do I create an assignment? Now, hang on a sec, Tobias. You're getting ahead of yourself. For our topic proposal, for our 3 research assignments, okay, we could add it right here. But we're going to get a little bit fancy. I'm going to use a Dropbox for these 3 paper submissions. Okay? We're not going to talk a lot about Dropboxes, but basically it's an area where students can submit files electronically to me. So instead of creating them here inside the gradebook, go ahead and just cancel out of that. We're going to create them under the Lessons tab and show you how you can create them in the gradebook at the same time. So go to Lessons. And we'd probably create a folder, but we're not going to. We're just going to say Add Content, and we'll create a Dropbox. Sorry about the flashing mouse there. It's a little annoying. We've got a fix for it. We just don't have permission on this computer to do it. So we'll call this one what? Topic Proposal? Was that our first one? So normally we would put instructions in for the Dropbox and everything like that. We won't bother. We won't put a subtitle. But what we're going to do with this Dropbox, before we save everything else, we're going to go to the Assignment tab. And where it says Gradebook Settings, if we click our drop-down, notice our things from the gradebook already show up here. We're going to pick New Assignment because we haven't created it yet in the gradebook. We pick which category. Again, it's pulling from our gradebook already. How many points it's possible. Now, here's where the calculation type comes into play. You remember we set it to manual for the other items? This one, we have 4 options. Well, 5. Manual means we'd have to manually type it into the gradebook. We want to grade it in the Dropbox itself. So we can do either average score, maximum score, first submission, or last submission. It only makes a difference if you allow students to submit more than one item. If they submit one item and you grade it, all 4 of those options will give them the exact same grade. But if they submit 2 copies of the paper and you grade the first one, set it to first submission, that's the score it's going to take. If you grade both of them and you set it to maximum score, it'll send over the highest of those 2 scores, or average, or last submission. Does that make sense? The same idea goes for online exams. You can do this exact same thing with an online exam or quiz. And sometimes for those, you might want to give the student 2, 3, 4 attempts because it's maybe a learning opportunity for them. And you can specify which grade actually goes to the gradebook. Display format, again, we'll leave it on default. We'll click Save. Let's go ahead and tell you what, we're going to leave off our other 2 research papers. So I think you get the idea of that, don't you? Instead, let's go right back to the gradebook, to the Manage tab. We would repeat that twice normally. Go to the gradebook, go to Assignments, and notice that it added it for us to the Okay, questions on setting up the gradebook, the initial setup?
I'm just wondering, if you use 100 in the point system, you can confuse yourself by thinking of percentages rather than points. Wouldn't it be better just use some other sort of random number to maybe even weight the thing according to the number you put on it?
You could weight it. You know what? Before we, I'm going to show you how to enter grades. I think it'll be a little more clear once you see that. But before we do that, let's make a modification of our grading system here. And let's make exam 2. So let's edit exam 2. And let's make it worth 200 points. Kind of the example we talked about earlier. And you'll see, and I think we'll kind of answer your question when we actually enter grades. So we'll save this. Now the idea here is we want exam 2 to be weighted twice as much as exam 1 and exam 3. So we're doing that by, in essence, the points become the weighting factor. So now let's talk about entering grades. Let's go back to our main menu. Again, this is the first screen we see now when we come to the gradebook. And we've just given our first exam, exam 1. We're ready to enter grades. There's a section here that says enter/edit grades. You have 2 ways to do it, by assignment or by user. If I've just given exam 1, I probably want to do it by assignment. That'll show me every student's area for the first exam. So we'll click the by assignment. Under selected assignments, we click our drop-down list. Notice it shows our categories with our assignments indented. You cannot give a grade to a category. If you try to select exams as a category, go ahead and try that, Tobias. Now click Go. It doesn't do anything because you can't grade a category. We need to actually select the assignment. So click exam 1, go, and don't look for a second. Put this back. Can you go back to the default view of this? And then change that. Okay, this is what it would really look like when you first got here. We'd used this course before. When you first come to this page, you will see all your students listed. You see a column for percentage and a column for points. You can enter either one. So this is where I was getting at with you. You can actually, and as well for your example. So this is a 100-point assignment. So for Susie Arts and Sciences, if we click on the points column and we type in 100, and then I like to use the tab key. It takes you straight down to the next list. It automatically fills in the percentage for us. So if you have your papers alphabetized, you can literally just type in the number, tab down to the next person, keep going down the list. Or if you work in percentages, as in your case, use the percentage column, and it will calculate the appropriate number of points.
Hey, wait, I got to your name.
Yeah, well, that's kind of weird. Tobias and my names show up, and we're instructors in here. Now, we could give ourselves hundreds and really feel good about ourselves, but especially if you're in the middle of the list, if your name isn't at the end like ours, it gets kind of annoying if you're working down the list. If we go back to the very top, there is an option here under Show All Users, no, I'm sorry, right here, to click Only Students, and then click Go. It's going to wipe out our grades. We should have done this first. But now if we scroll down the list, it's taking the instructors off the list. So that's a shortcut. It's nice to know. When you do that, it'll remember this view from here on out. You don't have to do this every time. The other thing that I should point out, it defaults to only display 25 people on a page. It assumes that if you have a course of 200 people, you'd rather work in segments. If you have 28 people in your class, it's really annoying that you have 3 people that show up on page 2. So you can change it to be 25, 50, 100, or select all, and then it'll always put everyone on one page. And unless you have a whole bunch of people in your class, that's, I think, a pretty good view to have. Lastly, one other change, or one thing to talk about, there is a comments column over here, which is optional. If you put a comment in there, Susie Arts and Sciences, when she looks at her gradebook, she will see those comments. If you never use comments, you can change it to condensed view. And it squishes things down quite a bit, and you can see more things on one page. So it's just another view, and it takes away the ability to add comments. OK, last thing on the grade entry page. You can do batch update for people. OK, so let's say we entered these 3 grades, and these 2 didn't turn in assignments. I don't have grades for them. I can batch give them a 0 by simply putting 0 down here, saying batch update. And anyone who I'd left blank, it autofills that in. OK? It's very handy, especially for, let's say you're giving everyone 25 points if they were in class a certain day, and if they were gone, they don't get 25 points. OK, kind of lame grades. But let's just say you're doing that. You could go through here, and the people who are gone from class, give them 0, and then batch update 25 to fill everyone else in. Again, if you have a big class, it can be a time saver. So let's go ahead. We want to lock these grades in, or save them, I should say. We will save them, and now they're written to the gradebook. I can always come back and change them if I need to, but now they're actually in the gradebook. Let's repeat the process. We can, right from this screen, we can select a different assignment to enter grades for. Let's do exam 2. Now this one, we made out of 200 points. So this one, Susie Arts and Sciences, let's enter it in percentages, Tobias, instead of points this time. Because we added up, she got 190 out of 200, and we did the math and figured out that that's 95%. So put in 95%, tab down, and it auto-calculates the points for you. Or vice versa. You put the points in, it calculates the percentage. But since the assignment's worth twice as much as exam 1, it's going to give some weighting for us within that category. Follow? Look under Show All Users. Do we have anything listed there? OK. Go ahead and finish putting some grades in there and save those, Tobias. I'm going to show one more example on this entry page. OK, so save changes. Do any of you have any team projects in your class ever where you grade like a whole team on something? OK. You can create teams in BlueLine under the Manage tab, and we won't show you that at the moment, but there's actually a place you can create teams. You can have them be randomly selected. You can create them yourself. But if you have any teams, let's see, go ahead and go to quiz 1. You wouldn't give a team score to a quiz probably, but it's in our gradebook. You can, under this, all your teams would show up. So we have one team. I don't know who's in it right now. But let's switch to the IRB team and then click Go. And no one's in it. OK, pretend there were students in here, though. The idea is you want to give all those students a certain grade. When you select that team, it's only going to show those students then. And then you could use your batch update, put in your 20 points or whatever, and fill in the grades just for members of that team. So the teams serve as a good way. You can just kind of filter your gradebook to see just those students on the grade entry page, as well as viewing the grades. Let's go ahead and just say done then, since that didn't work with my team example.
That did not work.
That did not work. So you've entered some grades. You want to kind of see your gradebook to see how things kind of look. I like the View All Grades button here, or link. This will show you kind of a spreadsheet type view of your gradebook. Your students are listed here on the left. The overall grade's calculated. Notice right now the overall grade is showing its percentage and a letter grade based on our scale. There are different colored columns then. This one's kind of bluish gray. This is the average for the exams category. And then these are the individual exam grades. If we were to do the math, well, we won't, because we're going to change the view here in a minute. Notice the, we've got a quiz category as well. The scroll bar is kind of nice to know. When you scroll, notice the assignments move, but the students' names stay right here. So you don't scroll off the screen and not be able to see who you're talking about. If we had a bigger list of students here, we'd have another scroll bar that would scroll the student list, but keep the actual headers across the top there so you can see what assignment you're looking at, which again looks pretty nice. You can also filter this display by team if we had any that worked. You also have that same only students, the numbers to display, and usually I ignore those ones over there. Let's just say, though, that I don't like these points. I'd rather show percents and letter grades. Okay? So remember, we left them all the same. Let's go take a look at that. So if we go back to our main gradebook page, click on the Preferences link. Here is where it says Default Display Format. And notice it's set to score, and that's what we were seeing for all of our individual exam or assignment grades. So we can change it here. Let's do score and let's do percent letter grade. I like percents. OK, so we'll do percent letter grade. That's going to affect everything that we left the default format, except for the overall grade. The overall grade has its own place where we specify how it shows up. And just for kicks, let's change that to just letter grade, just so we can see how it'll change.
Before we move on, I want to point out real quick. Rick mentioned when we went through the wizard that you could change how you set up your grade book, points versus percentage, under the preferences. And here it is. It says percentage. You click the pull-down menu. The other option is points. So again, if you go through the wizard and you change your mind, you can change. You can alter what you decided.
The other thing we'll point out on this page, remember I told you that a blank grade is not a 0? If you want it to be a 0, you can check this box, treat ungraded items as 0, and then it basically fills in zeros for anything that hasn't been graded. I don't like doing that if I've set my gradebook up at the beginning of the semester, because every student's overall grade will show F until they get enough stuff done to bring up their grades. Does that make sense? It does make sense at the end of a semester, maybe. If you're afraid you left out some zeros for assignments that weren't turned in, you can always come here and check that, and then anything that had been left blank will get filled into a 0. The other place it will work, let's say you don't build your gradebook ahead of time. You just build it one assignment at a time as you go. Then if you turn it on, it works fine as well. But if you build it all ahead of time and you do that and you show them their overall grade, they might freak out because it shows they have an F.
It's fun to torture students sometimes.
One other thing, at a previous school I worked at years ago, we used Blackboard. And at that time, I don't know what the Blackboard gradebook's like now, but at that time, it wasn't very good. Instructors didn't trust it, but they still wanted to keep their grades in there so students could at least see the information. And I found that over the years, even with this gradebook, while I like it, some people just don't trust it. I'm not saying it's not trustworthy, I'm just saying some people feel that way. And they just want to use it to record grades. If you check this box right here, oh, normally it is checked. Check that again, Tobias. Normally it says checked. Again, we use this course over and over again. If you don't want students to see the calculated grade, you just want them to see the individual assignment grades, you can uncheck that, and then they don't see it. The other way I've seen people do this is they leave it unchecked throughout the semester because they want to spot check things, and only when they feel comfortable with that grade do they come and check it and show the overall grade to students. Let's leave it on though in this case. So let's save it and let's see the changes we've made. Now if we go to view all grades, the overall is now just showing a letter grade because that's what we said. Everything else is now showing percentage and letter grade.
And that's just for the assignments that have been graded.
Exactly. Notice these other ones are blank. And like, so if we take one student here, Susie Arts and Sciences, oops, you can go back, that's okay.
Currently she has an A. So if she doesn't do anything else the rest of the semester, then her grade will change.
As soon as yeah, if she gets zeros across.
You would have to give her zeros though for that to take effect. So if you're going to exam 3 and Susie Arts and Science didn't show up or didn't take it, my suggestion is when you're entering grades in the grade book, give zeros for people who don't turn things in. You can always come, you can always come back later and change that grade if they turn it in late or something like that. Okay. Now the other option is if we check that one box that said treat ungraded items as 0, then they'd probably all have Fs right now because they've got all those ungraded items that would be counting as 0. But we didn't do that by default. Okay, while we're on this screen, sometimes people like to print things and keep paper copies of stuff. Sometimes it's nice just to have a paper copy with you in the classroom. If you were to go up to File and then Print right now and try to print this page, or Internet Explorer is actually a printer icon, it would only print what shows on the page here. It would cut off anything else that shows up. Or if you have more students, it would cut off anyone below this point. Instead, use the button over there that says Print. Now it's going to give you another page which gives you some options, which quite honestly you can just leave them how they are, and say Generate PDF. And what it'll do is it'll create a PDF file in print format of your gradebook. Now our gradebook's very small, has very few students, it all fits on one page. But if you've got a big one, it'll try to put logical page breaks between different categories, between the students, puts it in a nice PDF format, which now I can print this, or I could even save this to my computer and have kind of periodic backups. Since it's PDF, I could never re-import it into the gradebook, but at least it's kind of an archive of what people's grades were at different times in this semester. So again, go ahead and close this. If you want to print your gradebook, use that, that print icon. And there are some other things you can't, I mean, if it ends up that portrait works better for your gradebook, you can tweak the settings a little bit. But I've found that usually always that works pretty well how it is. What are we missing, Tobias? We can talk about export grades. Export grades allows you to simply export all of your grades to a comma delimited file, which will import into Excel. Some instructors have very specific calculations they want to do, so they use it for record keeping, and then we'll export it to Excel to do their own calculations. When you click the link, you have a choice between comma separated and tab separated. I usually pick comma, but either will work, usually with Excel. You can choose to include the category averages or not. We won't do that. Include course ID, it's just going to write it on the top of the field, so we won't do that. And then you pick, do you want the percentages on each assignment exported or the actual points? If you remember exam 1 and 2, one was worth 100 points, the other is worth 200 points. If we just export the percentages, we'll lose that relative weighting between those two exams. So let's do points in this case. If we click Export, and we'll just go ahead and say Open, it'll open right in Excel for us. And as we see for Susie Arts and Sciences, exam 1, she has the 97. Exam 2, she has 190 points out of 200. Had we exported percentages, this would still be 97, but this would have been 95? Yeah, 95. You follow that, the difference on there? So, you know, at this point, it's outside of BlueLine completely. I can do whatever else I want with it, or even say this as a backup.
See how now the overall grade shows up as for the entire semester, what the grade is? Is that what the student sees when in student mode?
No.
No.
Because we hid well, your option is they can either hide the overall grade or show the overall grade. Again, because Excel isn't BlueLine, it isn't counting ungraded items as 0.
Right.
BlueLine is. So they aren't going to see that. They're going to see what was in the grade book.
Let's go back to the gradebook and show you the student view, actually.
That's the biggest complaint students have is when they go to check their grade, and it's before the end of the semester, and it's probably the way I have it set up, it shows them as failing, and they're emailing me saying, what am I missing?
Do you have it set to
I must have
treat
something
ungraded
set.
items as 0?
I must have something set.
You know, one of the things, I've been working with this product for many years at this school and a previous school, and one of the things I've learned, everyone treats their gradebook differently. So it's kind of hard actually doing a session, even if only 5 of you, you're probably all 5 have different ideas of doing things. So especially with a gradebook, if you have questions, you can call us up or email us, and we can get in and look specifically at your gradebook and your grading scheme and try to diagnose what's wrong with it. Because I have guesses right now, but it's just easier. Give us a shout, and we'll actually get in there and look, and we can
Now,
find out.
obviously, if something that's checked or not checked in there,
But
that's
look,
why it's showing up that
let's look real quick, though. You talked about student view. If we go back to view all grades right now, this is what the student should see through overall grade in this format.
Their exams overall.
Oh, sorry. Right now, overall should just be doing the letter grade. Thank you, Tobias. Okay, and if you want to see that, if you want to see what the students see, there's a way to do that under the Report tab. So let's do that real quick so we can see what the students see. If we go to the category and set it to grades, I hope this is right. I could be wrong.
I think you're right.
I think I'm wrong, actually.
Student grades?
Okay, I think I'm right. Okay, and then we pick which student we want to see. Now click Run. This is the grade report Susie Arts and Science would see. So she sees her overall grade is an A, and if we had turned off or we'd unselected to show that, we should come here and we should see it not there anymore. So this literally is what that student can see. See each of the exam grades, the actual category for the exams category shows up. Okay? One other thing I'll point out, notice how some of these are grayed out. It means this is not being counted towards the overall grade if it's gray. If we'd have used the drop lowest score option, and let's say we said drop the lowest exam score, the one that's being dropped will be grayed out. Now there's nothing indicating that that's what it means to the student, but the students, if you tell them, they do have a visual indicator that the one that's gray is the one that's being dropped and not considered from the score. Oh, yeah, and you see the comments came across, so we entered in the gradebook. So there's no way for students to see other students' grades. So people sometimes are paranoid, and they ask, well, I want to make sure students can't see other students' grades. There's no way you can let them see other grades, so you just don't need to worry about that. They can only see their own. Yeah.
When it's averaging, if you had the categories weighted, so say even if the exams were all the same with each other, but you have the categories weighted separately, as is the case right now, when it does the overall grade, then even though you've only done 2 exams, they're being weighted as, so the exams are worth 50%, right? And let's say that they're the same as each other, but
Yes.
they've only taken 2, then it goes into the overall grade as,
It's
still going to have the weighting.
It's still going to calculate that category grade first. It's going to calculate the category grade and then weight that grade based on what's been turned in so far.
So since there's nothing else turned in, it's not going to say, well, it's only worth half of the grade, so the best you can do is an F.
Right.
There's nothing else there
Okay.
because there's nothing else to compare it to.
But it's doing the weighting that'll be in the final grade.
It is.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
My other question is how can I set it so students don't see anything yet? Because part of my apprehension in getting going on this is because I'd like to sort of try and enter some things and see how it's going. Can I work with my grade book and not make it visible to my students? Or is every time you have a grade book,
You can hide an assignment.
You can hide.
I hide my grade book and still. What if I just want to use it to calculate and then I decide I want to put it out?
You can hide an assignment in the grade book. So I'm going to leave here.
Yeah, but she wants to hide the whole grade book, though.
Hide the grade book.
There's one. It'd be nice if there was a little button that said, "Don't show my whole grade book." That button doesn't exist. So there's 2 things you'd have to do to make it hidden. Okay? This is one way to do it. This is the easiest way I can think of. One, hide the report tab because that's where they get their grades. So to do that, if you go to the Manage tab here and then go to Tab Settings,
You're blowing my mind.
right here, there's the Report tab. It's set to default. Everyone can see it. Go and either disable it, or if you want to leave it so you can see it but they can't, change the minimum rights to be course/group editors. That means you can see it, but no one with less rights than you can see it.
Now be careful, because if you set it to course or group administrators, you're not an administrator. So then you won't see it. All right? And don't ever, ever, ever monkey with the Manage tab. Because if you can't see the Manage tab, then you can't manage your course.
You can't, and you can't turn it back on either.
It's like getting frustrated because you're showing up on the roster and like, well, I'll just take care of that. I'll unenroll myself. Right? You can't get into your course. Then we get phone calls. Not that that hasn't happened.
Yeah, and it happens. So if it happens, don't feel embarrassed. Just call us. We'll fix it. But yeah, we have to do something different. It's hard for us to do it too, but we can do it. Yeah, we have to actually go into some variable and delete out a piece of text.
So the
but
easiest thing to do, like Rick said, is just disable it.
Well, then I can't see it.
no, I'd say leave it to course editors. That's what I'd say. So she can still view what students see.
Right.
Because she's still, yeah. So
Because I just, you know, I mean, and I ultimately I'd like to put it up, but I guess I would feel a little more comfortable if I could get it going and sort of figure it out, you know,
Now-
make sure I feel confident that it's calculating things the way I want before I start posting.
there's one more thing you need to get rid of, though.
Okay.
Actually, two more. So save this.
Yeah, this is a...
Like I said, it'd be nice if there were one button, but there isn't one button, unfortunately. Now let's go to the Course tab of our course. By default in your course, if we scroll down the page here, there is a grades, it's called a nugget. If you refresh that, Tobias, for you, the instructor, it shows you category averages for your whole class. For individual students, they see their own category average and their overall grade if you have that enabled. And if they click on this, it takes them to the Report tab, even though it may technically be hidden to them. So you need to remove this nugget as well so they can't see this. Okay? And there's one other nugget you also have to remove. I'm going to show you in a minute. But
We're going to leave you to figure it out.
Tobias, you can go to User Preview real quick.
User preview. Okay, let's show them this.
User Preview, if you haven't, yeah, go ahead.
So if you want to see what your course looks like overall, lessons, everything else, you can use User Preview, which is next to your name, Rick's name here. There's a pair of sunglasses that look like Harry Potter might wear them. If you click on that, you get an opportunity to preview your course from a different perspective. By default, it defaults it to student, right? And if you have any teams that you've created, you can default to the student enrolled in a specific team. Teams allow you to limit access to content and whatnot if you want. For this example, we'll just select student, and we're going to click Begin Preview. Now notice across the top, we have course calendar, lessons, resources. We hid the report tab. Remember, we made it only editors. The automate and manage are not accessible to students by default.
But scroll down
So we're going to scroll down. Now
and click on this.
just because you told me to.
And see, it still lets them bring up reports, even though the report tab is disabled. So we need to get rid of that nugget. So go ahead and get back to cancel our preview, so we're back to being instructor again.
To cancel the preview, the glasses are lit up a little bit. It's easier to see on your monitor than on the projector. We click on this, and here's the tricky part. You'd think it just sort of send you back. Here we need to, we can either exit to Course Manager, or we can click Cancel Preview. That's a new button.
I don't know where that goes.
Cancel Preview.
Yeah, 'cause before I think you had to click course editor.
It would, yeah, I think so. Or it took you right out. So we want to get rid of that nugget. We all agreed on that. Edit page. If we move down the page right now, this is actually now, it's editable. This is drag and drop. If we want to put our activity at a glance over here, we can literally drag these nuggets wherever we want to. Show them that for a second. See how you can move that around? But if you want to get rid of one, go to the one you want to get rid of. When you put your mouse over it, there'll be an X. And now it's gone. And you save the changes.
Are you in as a admin?
Yeah, so don't say apply to everyone.
And then if you want to bring it back, you just
Edit page.
Click Edit Page, and then there's a button here, add components. So there's multiple things you can add besides what's on there. And then that one's called, what is it?
I think it's called grades or something like that.
We'll see if you're right. Google
Grades. So say add selected. I think it'll put it at the bottom by default. So there you can bring it back then. Okay, so you see those two things, turn off the reports tab, but then also turn off that one as well, or they can still get to the reports tab even though it's gone.
You said there was one more?
I was wrong with the other one.
Oh,
I
just those two?
Yep.
Okay.
I
Thank you.
discovered it while while I was thinking here and
Discovered it.
didn't need to show you it.
You're fancy. Now, do you want to show how you can apply grades from under the Lessons tab using a content item?
Yeah, let's do that. So let's submit something to the Dropbox.
So I'm going to act like I'm a student, even though I'm not in student preview. And I'm going to go over to my Dropbox for top proposal. Here I am. I'm going to say, and then I'm going to click the attachments. And click browse. So I'm going to browse out to my computer, and here's my using agent tokens NVAR paper submission proposal. I'm going to click upload file.
So he's actually being a student right now who's submitting their paper to the Dropbox.
That's what I want. I click finish. And even after I click finish, I still need to click submit. I click OK. It says, yeah, you did it. And now my submission is down below here. Now, as an instructor, you will see a list as students begin submissions of their submissions. As a student, because we just sort of did a default setting, the only thing they see is this. They only see themselves with their timestamp and everything like that. Not that this is a thing about content, but I would warn you, I had my students submit their first essays using a Dropbox. Half of them copied and pasted inside the message. The other half clicked attachment and uploaded it. The half that clicked attachment and uploaded were on a Mac and they didn't have the extension showing. So when they submitted it, nothing was there. So I had to send them an email back and say, hey, if you're on a Mac, you have to show your extension. They're like, what do you mean? Blah, blah, blah. Just letting you know.
So you can put directions.
You can put directions. Yeah, it would be up here.
It was right there.
So yeah, I had actually scrolled down, but
You can also turn off like the ability for them to put something in the message box if you want to, and that way they have to attach a file.
yeah, so you can turn this off. You could even disable attachment too, so they paste it in here, but it kind of defeats the purpose of Dropbox. But
And when you pull up their file, it just comes up like a regular document. Like,
Actually, we'll show you right now. So when he clicks on that, it's going to bring up the grading page for it, and then there's a link to the attached file. So he'd probably click on that. It'll open in Word. Eventually, there it goes, open in Word. He can look it over, grade it, save it. It's not really an assignment there. If he wants to save that, he'd probably want to save it somewhere on the computer then. Then you put the grade in. Comments are, oh wow, man.
do the right
Remarks are optional, but they go up into that comments area in the gradebook if you put things here. Okay, that comments area we already saw. Not the correct assignment. Yeah, you're right.
Is there a way to comment on the paper?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's where, when we had it open in Word, I don't know, and we're not going to teach you how to use Word right now that we don't have time, but if you've ever used like the insert comment feature, you could do all that,
Oh, okay.
save the paper to your computer, and now go back to BlueLine if you would, Tobias. Oh, well. Like I said, we're not going to show you how to do that.
I'm familiar with that.
Right here, attachments. You can attach something and send it back to them. So you can attach that marked up copy. The other thing we've seen some instructors do, they'll put a microphone on. They'll use a program like Audacity, which is a free program for recording audio files. And they'll do an audio commentary while they're grading the paper. And they will send back the MP3 file to the students. And then the idea is the students listen to that file to get the critique of it. So you can send back whatever you want to through there. If you also want to, you can check this box, and in addition to putting the grade in the gradebook with the comments, it'll also send them an email which has the grade, the comments, and if you attach the file, a link to that file. That's optional, but you can do that. So go ahead and we'll click OK. So we graded this in the Dropbox itself. When we initially set up the Dropbox, we created the assignment in the gradebook so it's linked. So if we go to the Manage tab right now, and then go to the gradebook, view all grades.
Now we're going to have to change something because you're not in here.
Exactly. It's only showing students and we're an instructor right now, so we have to look at our own grades. So we'll update that view. And now if you scroll to the right, there it is. You can see that the grade came across there, and I'm failing the course now. Is that?
And you linked it, it's not manual, what is it?
First submission.
First submission. And like I said, it could have been any of those except for manual. And I like to say manual means you're going to manually type it into the gradebook as opposed to typing it somewhere else. We're still manually grading the Dropbox item, but we're not manually putting the grade in the gradebook. We're putting the grade in the Dropbox. So we need it to be either first submission, last submission, maximum score, average score, whatever those choices are.
So yeah, the manual's idea is that you're actually going to get a piece of paper, you're grading, and then you're going to type it in. Whereas first submission or whatever, you're under the lessons tab, and if you have, let's say, an online assessment, right, that will grab their first submission and throw it into the grade book, whatever the grade is. If it's multiple choice, it'll automatically generate and then take it over.
We've got like 2 minutes left. I want to show one more thing. We're only going to partially show you this because I can't do it live. Go back to the main gradebook menu if you would. If you use the gradebook, one advantage or one thing that we added in actually about a year ago, a customization we did, is that you can send these grades directly to the banner system when you have midterms and finals.
Also known as Nest.
Also known as Nest. Yeah, I don't know what to call it. How you do that, it's a two-step process. And actually, go back to the Manage tab real quick. The instructions, because you're not going to remember it from me telling you it, there's grades to banner right here is the actual process. And there's a link here called instructions. If you click on that, if you would, Tobias, it tells you how to do it. Step 1, you publish a grade. Step 2, you send them to banner. And I can't show them to you because we'd have to use a real course with real students, and then I get in trouble for failing students when I don't really teach their courses. But there's screenshots. There's even a video you can watch where it actually does take you through and you can see the process from a course. So if you want to do that when it comes time for midterms or for finals, it can be a time saver because you don't have to retype all those things in. It'll let you take them directly from your gradebook. And I think with that, we're going to probably call it done and answer questions, if you have any. Yes?
Sorry. I have some assignments this semester that are pass-fail.
Okay.
Is there something that you could do with that in the gradebook? Or?
How do you calculate it into your overall grade then if it's pass-fail? If it's fail, how does that compute in?
Well, what it is they have a lot of reflection essays that they need to do, and that those individually are graded on a pass-fail basis. But so there's, let's say, 6 throughout the semester. If they pass all of them, then they're going to get an A for that portion of their grade. If they complete them, basically, because I'm just looking for them to think and do the writing. And if they, miss one, they're going to get a B, C, or they'll fail.
What I would do in that case, create a category for those things. And let's say you said there were 6 assignments.
Yeah.
Let's just say that. Create 6 of them. Make the point value worth 0 points. Okay? So they're not really counting.
6 assignments within it. So one category with 6 assignments.
That's the first part. When you grade, you can put a letter grade in there, and it'll just put a letter grade in. I forget it's either the percent or the points. It only works for one of them. I can't tell you which one offhand, but try that. And it'll just be kind of a letter, and it won't calculate for anything, so it's worth 0 points. Create one more assignment in that category. That's actually the grade you're going to give, and that's going to be the subjective one where you're going to go and look through and see what the student did. And if they did all 6, you'll put in the 100%. If they did 5, so you'll have to still manually do that, but at least it gives you a place you can record keep your pass-fail, and you have your one column where you actually come up with the grade that gets calculated into the grade book.
And the student could just see the letter then. So if they open it up, they can see that they passed the ones that they've turned in so far.
Yep.
Or something like that.
Yep.
Okay, that's fine.
That's one way to do it. There could be other ones, but that's off the top of my head. I think that would work pretty good.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions?
Basically what you would do is, depending on how you want to do it, you can create a category, either called attendance or participation, and then you would create an assignment either per day or however you want to calculate it. But that would sort of be up to you. There's nothing built into, well,
I think
There
are you
is.
looking at this link?
there is, but it's,
There's no link from attendance to the gradebook. You can use the attendance manager and it lists all your students every day of class, and you can mark people absent and present, but there's no link to the gradebook. You'd have to then look through it and then put a grade into the gradebook for them.
Does it offer its own summary statistics?
Not really well, no. It's really more of a listing.
So you'd have to look through the whole grade book at everybody as opposed to looking at the end of the row and say, Johnny missed.
Correct. Now, I do have a little process where you can export it into Excel, do a couple of find and replaces, and then use a process called subtotals, and it will add up for you all the time, all the absences, for instance. But it's not automated. It's not difficult though. It's like a 2-page handout. I don't know where I've got it right now,
Hidden
but
somewhere.
it's hidden. But it's not terrible though either. So it will give you some summary. It has been a request for many years to add some sort of link between that and that. But again, it's one of those problems that you ask 10 different instructors, they probably all 10 have different ways that they consider attendance with respect to the gradebook. So coming up with a system that works for everyone is hard. So maybe someday they'll get that added in, but right now they don't.
yeah, so that's tough. Yeah, it's surprising because it's sitting right there, attendance, well, but it isn't linked to the grade book, so.
The students can view their attendance though, is that also this, or?
They go into the report, and just like the grades, they can view their attendance for any days that have been marked for them. Matt, we can show them real quick. Just click on it real quick there. It shows all the students. It defaults to show 1 month at a time, every day of the week. If you go to preferences, you can actually unselect the days you don't have class. So if you meet Tuesday, Thursday, you unselect Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you get a much smaller list. Oh, he's going to do that. So now you get a smaller list. So let's say today's the 17th then. You click on the 17, and you can select their attendance option. Big class gets really annoying to do that. So like that batch update on the gradebook, I'd say just mark the people absent who are absent.
Okay.
So let's say those two are absent, then come over here and set your default to present. And when you save, all the blank people will get present, and the absent ones get absent. So that's a much quicker way to entry versus going through every single person.
And I keep on picking A first because I'm like, hey, you're here.
So if you click Susie, click on Susie's name here. If Susie goes to her report and she has an attendance report, this is what she'll see. She'll literally see the days listed and what the status is. And I believe the notes also show up then for her as well. And if you export it, it exports it to an Excel spreadsheet, and it'll be like this. For every student, there'll be one entry for each day they were there or not, and there's a record. Yeah, we don't need to do that. So it's not a bad little tool to keep track of things, but there's no grading aspect to it. You have to do that yourself. Other questions? Okay. Tobias and I are easiest reached by emailing us at the email address AET, which stands for Academic and E-Learning Technologies, aet@creighton.edu. You can email us individually, but we prefer that one only because it goes to the two of us and about 3 other people. And Tobias and I both tend to be gone every now and then, and that way you don't wait around for us to get back to you. Someone will get back to you quicker that way. You can call us directly as well.
Yeah.
Our numbers are in the directory.
That's probably the best way is AET, the AET email.
And we have access to get into any course in the system. So by all means, if you have a specific question about your gradebook or about something in your course, tell us. When you leave us a message or email us, say specifically, I'm looking at my gradebook in this course and this is the issue. What do you think? And we can get in there, take a look, email you or call you back, and figure out a solution. Hopefully that works good for your class.
Yep. All right. Well, thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Thank you. I have a question not about gradebook.
Uh-oh.
Press F2 on there.
Thank you for trying TechSmith's Camtasia Relay.